overcoming creative blocks. This isn't just for you if you are someone living an artistic life or does something artistic for work. This is also for you if you are someone who is just not feeling that curiosity, that spark, that spice that we feel in life that comes from creativity, that comes from exploring things differently. And when you're listening to this episode, which is all about bringing that back to you, getting out of this Groundhog Day feeling where every day is the same, we're not seeing or experiencing anything different. When you're listening, and if you feel that way, know that creativity is not just limited to typical things. So in this episode, I want to expand it beyond just what we typically think of as creative pursuits. Because by expanding that definition, it's going to help you bring it more into your life to keep it more interesting and exciting. And it's so important for your emotional health. This recently became a topic for me. It hit a nerve because, and I talked about this in the newsletter that I send out every Wednesday. I was saying how for over 2 years, I've been carrying around a pad of paper and paintbrushes. And for over 2 years, I have taken them with me everywhere that I've been traveling. Multiple countries, over water, sea, land. They've come with me. And not once have I drawn a thing. Not once have I painted. I don't even think that I had taken this stuff out beyond just to put it from one shelf to the next or from luggage into the closet. I always had the intention to do it, which is why I carried it with me. But I never got around to it. Now, if you're thinking here nodding along, there's probably something you have too that you've been meaning to get back to. Something that either you wanted to explore or try or you used to do and it brought you a lot of happiness and joy. Something creative like this. Maybe it's also a program or a book that you meant to read and you just keep carrying it with you, or you refuse to get rid of it because you keep telling yourself that as long as I have it there, one day I am going to use it. I didn't, and when they ask me, why do I keep carrying this stuff around? This friend asked me, why do you keep carrying these things around if you're not going to use them? It made me think, yeah, you know what? I should use them or stop carrying them around. And what I in fact did was that day, I made plans to draw. And I'll talk about how I did that, overcoming these creative blocks as we get a little further into the episode. But first, let's talk about why we get stuck with this. And it doesn't need to be something as simple as just not drawing or reading the book. It can be deeper creative blocks that stop us from really feeling in touch with ourselves and with just kind of the pulse of life. Because that's what creativity is. When you're only doing things because they are functional, that's the opposite of creativity. And you can't invent and be inspired and find new things or meet new people when you don't have this creative aspect to your life. And that's why it's so easy to get stuck. But it's first recognizing what are the blocks that I have. And the 3 ones that I've recognized most with me and that I've also seen in general, like these are not just creative blocks from the sense of, oh, you're not painting or drawing. They're creative blocks from stopping you for any type of transformation or getting in touch more with what you like or who you are. And so I've seen them working with people in different ways. And the 3 that come up again and again are historical blocks, emotional blocks, and curiosity blocks. Now, historical blocks are these really entrenched ones from our past. It could be related to something someone said to us, rejection, criticism. These are really deep historical wounds that might have stopped us from doing something we really love, or maybe they are the ones that stop us from ever starting. And when you look at these historical blocks, why they happen, usually it's because we didn't have psychological safety. We didn't have this space to take risk, to express ideas, to contribute without fear of judgment. So something has happened to make you not have that psychological safety, which is fundamental to create. For me, for writing, for example, I used to write all the time. I would write little short stories and poems and I would submit. And that was something that I did until my first year of college, when I took a creative writing course thinking this is going to be the easiest day I ever had. And day one, the professor came in. He was one of those, I'm going to be super tough and you're going to work really hard. And he came in and said this, and he said, all of you are going to start out with a C. This was his starting speech to us. We're all undergrads. I'm going to start you with a C, and then you will go down or up from there. And the first piece I submitted to him was a short story, and I remember him saying, not mincing words here, this is the biggest wishy-washy crap I've read in a while. That stripped away the psychological safety. And it became then about fear of failure. And that's one small incident, I'm sure there are others, that contributed to me not writing anymore. And I shouldn't have let it. We can say that all we want. Oh, that person's comment shouldn't have made us feel this way. But it doesn't take away the fact that it did. And so if you search really deep, you can probably think, is there something you really love to do creative-wise, activity-wise, that you don't do anymore? Can you remember someone or something making it feel no longer safe to do it? Safe to fail, safe to experiment. From historical blocks, we then move into emotional ones. Perfectionism, procrastination. It's the inability to move forward with something because of these strong emotions we have around them. That stems from something which is really challenging but super common, which is cognitive appraisal. And that's when you look at something, a task, and the way that you measure its difficulty is so much greater than it actually would be. This is what I felt with my paintbrushes. I felt like the challenge of sitting down and drawing and painting and having inspiration, making time for it, and not doing all the other stuff I had to do, my perceived challenge, my perceived difficulty was so high that I ended up pushing that task out, procrastinating, saying, well, if I don't have perfect conditions, why start? And we do this with a lot of other things. We increase the difficulty in our minds of how it will be or how the situation will go. And it makes us not start. And then our last emotional block is the curiosity one. For some reason, you don't have this drive to experiment and explore. Now, it can be because of something emotional that's happening, that's taking a lot of your energy. It can also be because you're in a routine. You're on automate, you've done things the same way for a while, and you just don't have that spark. It's a muscle you need to use. If you don't use it, then it just kind of goes weak. You don't focus on it. Something else related to the curiosity block that happens, and this is a way of thinking that stops us if we go into those cognitive distortions, which is the availability heuristic. An availability heuristic is the idea that you are going to prioritize in your mind information and experiences you are really familiar with or that are recent to the exclusion of others. So if I'm someone who is more commonly riding a bike, for example, than swimming, then I'm going to prioritize a riding a bike experience, and I probably won't consider a swimming one. Not because the swimming one wouldn't be interesting to me or beneficial, but because it's what I already know. And with creativity, that's a problem because that is exploring what you don't know. It's taking the limits of what exists for you and expanding them and going further. And you cannot do that only with known things. So if we want to remove the curiosity block, and I'm going to start with this one, the easiest thing to do is try something completely different. Something that maybe you considered doing or maybe you didn't, just to push the boundaries of where your mind goes. And you never know, inspiration really comes to you in that. For me, one of the things that I recently did this way is it was called exotic dance. Okay, I don't really feel comfortable with this, but let's try it. And I go into the studio with a really good friend. She's probably listening now. We were both a bit shocked with his experience. And it's in a pole dancing studio. But instead of actually like wrapping around the pole and climbing it and doing all this, the woman has us do these really weird reverse somersaults on the floor next to the pole and like bending your neck and wrapping around. There's some people doing this with 6-inch stilettos. I'm in my socks. And I'm looking at my friend and we're both thinking, this is not what we were here for. It was so outside of what I would have gone to. And I actually thought there were moments when I thought about getting up and leaving. It definitely showed me things I do not want to do. Reverse somersaults on a hardwood floor and stilettos, not for me. It wasn't a sense of regret for trying. It was just kind of, okay, this is going to inspire me towards something else. And it actually led me to a different class that I really did enjoy. Sometimes we're afraid of how a new experience will go, but even when it goes so bad, you can always get something from it. So starting with a small, different thing, something that you have been meaning to do, someone invites you to do, try that. This week, try that. There are 2 other things that I've been trying because, again, the easiest way to get over this curiosity block is to experiment, to get curious. I have always wanted to do pottery. This is something I always said I would do. But like many of us, we say we'll always do it, and then we don't actually take the time to research, to find the class, to do the thing. But then I had a friend invite me, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try. And we go to this pottery class. It's in this big open studio on this Mexican ranch. Long table. We're each given this huge clump of clay, which is mixed with ceramic. One of the things I always wanted to make was, you know those little mugs that have the boobs on them? There's this whole theme. They look kind of wooden or they're ceramic, but they've got it's just boobs and it's a mug, but it's done very artistically. Let me create that, which was an interesting experience because I'm in this class with my recovering Spanish, trying to explain to this male instructor that I want to create this boob mug. He was very good about it though. And he came over and guided me in an alternative way that I wouldn't have even expected. And even giving me props and tools that I didn't know existed to create what I wanted to do. And so it further opened my mind to what is possible. Because we often think that the knowledge we have is the ceiling of something, that what we know is what exists. But in fact, it's such a small portion. And even just in the same area where you have expertise, someone else's perspective, it brings in so much more. And in the end, created my boob mug. The final product is not amazing, but this kind of ties into a really important part of overcoming your creative blocks is focusing on the process and not the final product. So the final product was not the beautiful Etsy level boob mug I wanted to sip out of every time I do my miracle mornings, but the process was amazing. Being in the sunlight, listening to light music, working with my hands, not seeing a screen, very nourishing. And a mistake that I've made and a lot of people make is thinking that the creative output matters as much as the process, and it doesn't. It's the process that's the most important. When I finally decided to set out and draw, I got this book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. It's about how many of us draw what we think and not what we see. So it's training you to see as an artist does. And one of the strategies she uses is draw an image from upside down, because you will then focus on what you see, the objects in front of you, rather than what you're interpreting. And also, because you can't see the final product as you're doing it, you can't hear that internal dialogue of how I'm failing, how it's not good enough, how I don't measure up, how I'm not Picasso. And using these kind of strategies, people who have no artistic talent or dormant artistic talent, let's say, end up creating really beautiful things. And there's lots of photos in the book of this. So I got together 2 friends. I said, we're going to do a drawing, because I hadn't done it on my own up to now. But if I invite other people, I will. We went up to the roof, we set up, and we went to draw La Catrina, which is that famous Mexican image of the woman who looks dead, but is very beautiful with flowers. And we were drawing her upside down. This got me to draw again after 2 years, over 2 years. Now, I've shared with you already some ways that I have experimented to overcome creative blocks, and you've probably picked up some of the hints along the way. This idea of not judging so much on the final output, getting community behind you for it, trying something, just going for it, starting before you feel ready. That is such a big thing, because I wanted to be ready to paint and draw for over 2 years. Moment didn't come. It's also being okay with being a beginner, with knowing that if this is something new or something you haven't done for a while, it's probably going to suck a little bit. And one of the other things, this is from The Artist Way, that amazing book, is this idea of committing to daily creativity. She mentions writing artist pages every day. So you do 3 pages of your thoughts, which is an artistic thing in itself, just writing, expressing yourself. The daily creativity is just exercising the muscle. It's doing something small and creative for a little bit of time that is not for work, that has no other purpose than to help you grow, help you feel good, help you get more in touch with yourself. These are the ways to overcome those creativity blocks. I hope in this conversation you've thought about something you are ready to try or do, and I'll see you in the next one.